Well, I guess we're on. Just wanted to say good afternoon, everyone, and welcome today. My name is Julie Seaman. I work for DOT Local Aid and in the Division of Local Aid, and thank you for joining us today. You know, we really much appreciate you taking the time to participate in this webinar. Today, I'm joined for the webinar with three of my colleagues, Brian Wirtz, who's in our division office with myself, Tom Berryman from our DOT Local Aid District 4 office, and Eve Chamberlain from the NJTPA. This is one of our 3 transportation alternatives set aside grant application informational webinars. 2 were held previously in June and July. This is our 3rd and will be our final webinar. Each webinar provides an opportunity to hear about the grant application process. Participants in today's webinar will be able to ask questions and get clarifications about the grant application process throughout the presentation. The webinar will be posted for viewing after today's session. Incidentally, we have previous webinars also posted. So if you wanted to find out what was asked and it's the same content, but there's other questions that may have been brought up. Here are some key dates to keep in mind. Our solicitation letters went out at the end of May, May 24th to be exact. And again, this is our last informational webinar. You could also sign up for our mandatory one-on-one meetings with us to discuss your application through September 30th. So that's important. The deadline for that is approaching. Today is September 15th. And again, the grant application deadline is November 30th. So the presentation today will review in depth all of the key dates, so stay tuned and hear more. This is the general overview of the dates. Today, our speakers are from New Jersey Department of Transportation's Safe Routes to School Resource Center at Rutgers University. Their mission is to partner with schools and municipalities to prioritize and implement opportunities for people to walk, bike, or travel by other wheeled devices. At this point, I will turn over the presentation to Leanne Von Hagen and John Dugan, who are going to give today's presentation. We'll be back for Q&A. We'll talk to you later. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Julie. And she meant November 3rd, not November 30th, but we'll go into that. We have all the details coming up for you, so stay tuned. So as Julie mentioned, my name is Leanne Von Hagen, and I manage the New Jersey Safe Routes Resource Center at Rutgers University. So for today's session, we are going to review the federal aid programs and the specifics on the Transportation Alternatives Set Aside 2023 grant application process. Plus, we're going to give you some tips and strategies on where to find helpful resources. A couple housekeeping logistics before we get started. This webinar is being recorded. The presentation and the recordings are available as soon as possible on our website after today's presentation, which is saferoutesnj.org. And I hope everybody knows where the chat button is. If you don't, it's at the bottom of your screen if you hover. In order to move today's meeting along, we would like everyone to use the chat function for questions. And I know chat can sometimes feel awkward or you're not sure you've got the question phrased just so. Please don't feel self-conscious about that. We're not here to critique your question or your comments. We really want to get to your any need for clarification, any comments you have. There are no dumb questions, as they like to say. So don't feel like you have to put questions in chat perfectly. We will be also providing contact information for folks at the Local Aid Resource Center to ask additional questions. So my colleague and myself, John Dugan and myself, will be monitoring chat. We do have 2 spots in today's agenda where we're going to get to Q&A. You can see it here on the agenda. We'll be keeping everybody muted so that we can keep background noise down, but we'll be back to answer questions shortly. So go ahead and ask your questions and we'll get to them at our first Q&A. But from here, I'm going to jump into a little bit of background about the project. So when reviewing grant funding opportunities at the New Jersey Department of Transportation, they're divided into state funded programs and federally funded programs. More information about both state and federal grants can be found on the NJDOT Local Aid Resource Center website, which is njdotlocal.aidrc.com. And I'll talk a little bit more about state funding later on in this presentation, but today's focus is on the Transportation Alternatives Program. The National Highway Trust Fund is a transportation fund in the United States, which receives money from a federal fuel tax. Every state in the country receives an apportionment of the National Highway Trust Fund. So Transportation Alternative Set-Aside is a set-aside of the Surface Transportation Block Grant Program and provides funding for projects and activities, including on and off-road pedestrian and bicycle facilities, infrastructure projects for improving non-driver access to public transportation and enhanced mobility, community improvements such as historic preservation and vegetation management, environmental mitigation related to stormwater and habitat connectivity, trails that serve as a transportation purpose, and safe routes to school projects. But here's something to know. In New Jersey, transportation alternatives and safe routes to school funds are separated into two different grant application processes. So be on the lookout for a separate grant application solicitation for the safe routes to school funding. So again, it is all part of the same funding pot, but they are separated out in New Jersey. The Transportation Alternatives Program was established by Congress in 2012 under MAP 21. The FAST Act in 2015 replaced the TAP program with a set aside of funds under the Surface Transportation Block Grant programs. This has been maintained into the new bipartisan infrastructure law, also known as the Infrastructure Job and Investment Acts, IIJA, BIL, you'll see both acronyms. In 2021, Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act authorized new funding for the TA set-aside program for the next 5 years, amounting to $1.38 billion nationally for FY 2022, and increasing to $1.49 billion nationally by fiscal year 2025. So there's more money coming, keep that in mind. Solicitation of applications, project selection, and funding are administered jointly by the New Jersey Department of Transportation and the 3 New Jersey Metropolitan Planning Organizations, also known as MPOs. 50% of transportation alternative set-aside funds are sub-allocated through NJDOT to the 3 MPOs. Okay, here's the money, right? This is the exciting part. This is a breakdown of the number of applications, requested amount, and number of grants awarded for the past 3 TA set-aside solicitation rounds. Funding for this program has more than doubled under the new bipartisan infrastructure law, previously funded at $9.9 million each year. The new law provides an additional $15.3 million, bringing the total program funding for this FY 2023 grant round to $25.2 million. That's just New Jersey. Now for the most important question, the deadline for the application is before midnight on November 3rd. So, mark that on your calendar if you haven't already. There are no applications that are accepted past the deadline. At this point, I will give you an overview of the TA set-aside grants. Please use the chat function for any questions, which we'll get to shortly. So let's jump right in. So what is the purpose of Transportation Alternative Set-Aside Grant? Also, we'll call it TA Set-Aside for this webinar. The program awards community-based transportation projects for either land or water that expand travel choices, strengthen public health and the local economy, improve safety and quality of life, and/or protect the environment. Who is eligible to apply? The majority of applicants are from local municipal governments. However, there are many entities eligible to receive TA set-aside funds, and this is as amended in the bipartisan infrastructure law. So this includes a regional transportation authority, transit agency responsible for public transportation, natural resource or public land agency, including any federal, tribe, state, or local agency responsible for natural resources or public land administration, such as state or local park or forest agencies, a tribal government, Metropolitan Planning Organization that serves in an urbanized area with a population of 200,000 or fewer, which we don't have in New Jersey, but that is part of the federal law. A nonprofit entity, Nonprofit organizations are not eligible as a direct grant recipient for TA set-aside funds for this solicitation. However, they are eligible to partner with any eligible entity on an eligible project. So if a state or local requirement permits, the DOT will have the final say in the determination of the eligibility of an applicant. And in addition, many municipalities co-sponsor and partner with their county or regional nonprofits to complete applications, work together on project authorization and implementation. And really, these kind of partnerships do help improve and strengthen the municipality's capacity to manage federal grants. What's an eligible project? The facilities must be surface transportation oriented for land or water. In other words, not solely for recreation purposes. For example, off-road trails are eligible for funding, but should first and foremost be a transportation facility that is multi-use and connects destinations. Transport by water encompass features such as canals, docks, and piers connecting to ferry operations. What distinguishes TA set-aside activities from other very worthwhile quality of life and environmental activities is their potential to create a transportation experience beyond normal expectations. At the same time, they may provide the environment and protect the environment and provide a more aesthetic, pleasant, and improved interface between the transportation system for the communities and people adjacent to the transportation facilities. Proposals must be for a complete, identifiable, and usable facility or activity. Funds are not available for a partial project that cannot function as a complete and useful activity on its own. So that means not a part of a trail, it must have connections and destinations, if that's for an example. So project must complete criteria for at least one out of the 7 categories, and I'm going to go through each of those 7 categories. Each project must fall into one of these 7 categories. Design and construction of on-road and off-road trail facilities for pedestrians, bicyclists, and other non-motorized forms of transportation. Conservation and use of abandoned railroad corridors for trails for pedestrians, bicyclists, and other non-motorized transportation users. Construction of scenic turnouts, overlooks, and viewing areas. Historic preservation and rehabilitation of historic transportation facilities, both land and water, such as building structures and canals. Community improvement activities, specifically streetscaping and corridor landscaping. Environmental mitigation to address stormwater management control and water pollution prevention or abatement related to highway construction or due to highway runoff, and reduced vehicle-caused wildlife mortality or to restore and maintain connectivity among terrestrial or aquatic habitats. All right, I'm going to spend a little bit of time going through each one just so you can be clear what each of these activities cover. So first, the design and construction of on-road and off-road trail facilities for pedestrian, bicyclist, and other non-motorized users. Eligible activities include new or reconstructed sidewalks, walkways, or curb ramps, bike lane striping, wide paved shoulders, bike parking and bus racks, new or reconstructed off-road trails, and bike and pedestrian bridges and underpasses. Second, conversion and use of abandoned railroad corridors for trails for pedestrians, bicyclists, and other non-motorized transportation users. These eligible activities include design and constructing multi-use trails along railroad right-of-way, major reconstructions of multi-use trails along railroad right-of-way, developing rail with trail projects, bike parking and bus racks, and purchasing unused railroad property for reuse. Third, Third, construction of scenic turnouts, overlooks, and viewing areas. Eligible projects in this category include improvements to protect and enhance existing state or federal designated scenic or historic highways. So for more information about designated scenic byways in New Jersey, visit NJDOT's Historic Roadways website. Okay. Fourth, Historic preservation and rehabilitation of historic transportation facilities, both land and water, such as building structures and canals. So these activities include restoration and reuse of historic buildings with strong links to transportation history, access improvements to historic sites and buildings, restoration of railroad depots, bus stations, and lighthouses, rehabilitation of rail trestles, tunnels, bridges, and canals, and interpretive displays at historic sites. Okay, fifth, community improvement activities include streetscaping and corridor landscaping. Activities in this category enhance the aesthetic and environmental qualities of a transportation facility. Eligible activities include lighting, historic sidewalk paving, benches, planting containers, decorative walls, and walkways. Applications under this category should also include elements of safety and ADA or American with Disability Act upgrades for pedestrians and bicycle users. Okay, sixth, environmental mitigation to address stormwater management control, water pollution prevention or abatement related to highway construction or due to highway runoff, vegetation management and invasive species prevention. Environmental mitigation projects to address stormwater management should include landscaping that helps with stormwater management. Green infrastructure is also included as long as it has a transportation facility connection. So the eligible activities here include detention and sediment basins, stream channelization stabilization, vegetation management, invasive species prevention, and storm drain stenciling and river cleanups. And finally, the seventh category is reduce vehicle-caused wildlife mortality or to restore and maintain connectivity among terrestrial or aquatic habitats. So these activities include wetlands acquisition and restoration, stream channel stabilization, wildlife underpasses or overpasses, which may include bridge extensions to provide or improve wildlife passage and wildlife habitat connectivity, and monitoring and data collection on habitat fragmentation and vehicle-caused wildlife mortality. Okay, so those are the 7 categories. Please keep adding your questions to chat. I see we've got a few already, so thank you for that. So let's talk about eligible costs. Project costs eligible for funding include design, right-of-way acquisition, and construction. Applicants are encouraged to utilize local funds to pay for pre-construction activities such as preliminary design, final design, right-of-way, and environmental documentation. However, a design assistance program is available, which will be explained a little bit later in this presentation. It's important to note that costs for construction inspection services should be identified separately if funds are desired for that activity. There are several project costs not eligible for funding. These include administrative costs, miscellaneous contingencies, utility facility relocation costs, and uniform traffic directors, unless it's required by design. Some of you may be familiar with the previous transportation alternatives or transportation enhancement grants. There are a few activities that used to be eligible under this funding, which are now ineligible activities. These include providing pedestrian and bicycle education programs, acquisition of scenic or historic easements and sites, providing scenic or historic highway programs, and funding welcome centers and transportation museums. So those are no longer eligible under this funding. Recreational trails are also not included in TA set aside. Recreation trail applications are submitted through the Department of Environmental Protection, and more information on that program is available on the DEP website. So let's talk a little bit about project selection. Each application will be reviewed on-site by DOT staff and will also be reviewed by TA set-aside selection committee. Applications will be evaluated using an established program criteria using a 25-point rating system. Each project will be assessed based solely on the content of the application and attachments. There are several ways the rating system gives extra points to applicants. You can receive an extra point if the project is located in one or more of the following designated areas: an adopted complete streets policy, transit villages, or listed by the Department of Community Affairs as a targeted urban municipality, which is also known as TUMS, or an opportunity zone. Construction-ready projects will be given higher consideration. Location of the project is very important. All grant applications will be reviewed for deliberate and actionable considerations of equity in underserved communities. All right, let me tell you a little bit more about applications that provide benefit to the communities identified in the following categories. Next slide, please. So here are the equity consideration categories. Title VI of the Civil Rights Act, environmental justice communities, limited English proficiency populations, and individuals with disabilities. Census data will be used to determine if a project meets this equity criteria, and the following data sets will be used: percent low income, percent minority, less than high school education, linguistic isolation, individuals under age 5 and individuals under age 18, individuals over age 64, and individuals with disabilities. But here's what you need to know. As an applicant, you will not be required to show or map census data. What you just need to know is DOT does this as part of the review process. They'll be looking at all of these factors, and equity considerations will be part of the review process. So, for example, if you have multiple projects you're considering, choose the project located in the section of your town that has the greatest equity need. Okay, you may have noticed I went through the part about designated transit villages, targeted urban municipalities, and opportunity zones pretty quickly. So you might want to know where to find out more about that. And there's a website for that. So if you've not already used it, you can go to the Department of Community Affairs. They have this fantastic mapping tool that maps these designations, points of interest like transit, libraries and schools, and more. Excuse me. Plus, you can print your maps to include in your application. So you need to just search for NJDCA Community Asset Map and start playing around with that data today. Sorry about that. Okay, so TA set-aside funds are to be used only for projects with a direct transportation relationship that improves quality of life while reaching the greatest number of people. These are the overarching selection criteria for transportation alternative grants. Applications should identify and show support for at least one of the selection criteria. Questions you should answer in your application include: can you explain how the project affects users' choice in mode of transportation? Can you predict usage? Does this project increase active transportation opportunities? Does it connect to bridge the gap with other bicycle and pedestrian facilities? Will safety be improved? Does the project provide regional or community health benefits? Can you explain how it benefits quality of life, public health, and the environment? Is this project part of a larger state, regional, or municipal transportation land use or economic development plan? If so, make sure you identify, upload documentation, and include the project's connection to this bigger picture. Does the project connect community or regional activity centers and provide economic and/or tourism benefits? How does the project enhance, preserve, or protect historical resources? Is it urgent because that resource could be lost? In short, this is a very competitive grant. You will need to provide compelling reasons based on the selection criteria why your project should be funded. Okay, so at this point, I'm going to turn the presentation over to my colleague, John Dugan, who will walk you through the grant application. And when John is finished up with his walkthrough, we're going to get to our first stop for Q&A. So keep putting your questions in chat. Thanks so much.
Hey everyone, I'm John Dugan with NJ Safe Routes Resource Center here at Rutgers University. Next, what I'm going to do is walk you through the online application process. And like Leanne mentioned before, any questions that pop up, please feel free to put them in the chat. We're going to take a break afterwards so we can get to them right away. To apply for the TA set-aside grant, applicants will need to utilize SAGE, or the System for Administering Grants Electronically. Each municipality has access to SAGE. Most likely the administrator of the municipality has the username and password, so make sure to check with that person first. Municipalities and counties already have an authorized official registered with access to SAGE from the NJ Department of Community Affairs. If you are a school or school district and don't have access to SAGE, contact DOT or local aid to request access. And if you don't have access to SAGE and you are not representing a municipality, you can apply as a new user online through the NJDOT website. Now I'm going to walk you through the application screens on SAGE, literally going screen by screen. Once you log into SAGE, you will see the 6 program requirements for the TA set-aside grant. These 6 requirements are resolution or letter of support, maintenance commitment, responsible charge, project must relate to surface transportation, project must meet one of the 7 eligible activities that Leanne already went over, mandatory one-on-one grant application meetings. So I'm going to go through each of these 6 requirements in detail. And if any of these 6 requirements are not met, unfortunately, the project and the application will be considered ineligible. The first program requirement for TA set-aside is a resolution or letter of support. The resolution must be signed and passed within 1 year prior to the solicitation date, which is May 24th, 2022. The resolution must refer to the project that you are applying for and include either resolution or letter of support from the owner of the public right-of-way that impacts a project. So if the project is on a county road, you'll need to obtain a letter of support from the county. And if the project is on a state road, you can contact the Bureau of Safety, Bicycle and Pedestrian Programs at NJDOT, at bikeped@dot.nj.gov. Sample resolutions and letters of support can be found on our website, saferoutesnj.org/funding. And I'll also show an example in the next couple slides. The next requirement needed to apply for a TA set-aside grant is a maintenance commitment, which certifies continual ownership and maintenance of the project. If the applicant does not have jurisdiction over the right-of-way, then a signed letter or resolution must be provided from that party. So if one of the roads within your project is a county road, then you'll need to submit a letter of resolution certifying continual ownership and maintenance of the project. As is the case with support letters and resolutions, they must be dated and signed within 1 year of the solicitation date, which is May 24th, 2022. If it's a letter, it must be addressed to the applicant, not to NJDOT. You can also combine both the support and maintenance commitment into one resolution or letter, which is strongly encouraged to save yourself some time. Here is an example of a letter which includes both support of the project and maintenance commitment to the project. This sample is also embedded within the SAGE application for ease of use and is also available on our website. Once again, saferoutesnj.org/funding. The third requirement for applications to the TA set-aside program is responsible charge. This person must be a full-time employee who will be in charge of the project. The responsible charge cannot be a consultant, even if they are providing engineering services or functioning as the local agency engineer of record. The responsible charge is accountable for the project from the beginning to the end and is expected to maintain familiarity of day-to-day project operations, including project safety issues, direct project staff or consultants to carry out project administration, and make decisions about change conditions or scope that require change orders or supplemental agreements. The full list of duties and functions of the person of charge, of responsible charge, can be found in the 2023 TA set-aside handbook. The fourth program requirement is that the project must be related to surface transportation, which includes both land and by water. So that includes docks, canals, piers, and ferries. The fifth requirement is that the project must be one of the 7 eligible activities that Leanne mentioned earlier in her presentation. You will only be able to select one of the 7 activities. So keep this in mind. If any of the following 5 requirements are not included, projects will not be considered. If you choose option number 1, design and construction of on-road and off-road trail facilities for bike, ped, and other non-motorized transportation users, you will be asked, what group is the facility meant to serve? Pedestrians and bicycles? And what is the length of the proposed facility? Indicate the number of miles and be clear about the project limits. Also, as I indicated earlier, you must pick one of the 7 activities. However, if your project meets other activities Choose the one that most accurately fits your project, and then include in your narrative portion of the application, which I'll show you in a few slides. So there's an area for you to add more information. So for example, if your project is green streets, which address both 5 and 6, choose one that fits the goal of the project best. If controlling flooding is the goal, then choose 6, but include in the narrative that it will also improve streetscaping with the installation of trees and plantings. If the project is an off-road trail for bicycles and pedestrians, check that box, but if it will also address stormwater management and reduce vehicle-caused wildlife mortality, include that in the narrative to show breadth of the project. Exactly. The last requirement is one-on-one grant application meetings. To apply for TA set-aside funds, applicants must attend a one-on-one pre-application meeting with NJDOT Local Aid. You'll indicate in the application whether or not you have scheduled and attended a one-on-one pre-application meeting and provide the date of the meeting. More details will be given later in our presentation today about these mandatory pre-application meetings and how to schedule them, so stay tuned. The next section of the application is to indicate the type of improvement. Again, picking the infrastructure and engineering project that best represents your project. Bikeways include new bikeways on and off road. Pedestrian safety includes new sidewalks, ADA curb ramps, and traffic calming or quality of life, which includes beautification, environmental mitigation, economic development, or historic preservation. Then you'll need to state the title of the project up to 100 characters and choose the county and municipality of the project. The next section of the SAGE application includes providing contact info for the applicant. So name, address, zip code, phone, email, and federal tax ID. Ideally, this contact should be also your responsible charge, but sometimes the mayor is the contact or the person from the applicant organization who is championing the project. The next section is the project proposal, where you provide a detailed description or narrative of the project up to 4,500 characters, which includes spaces. This is where you would include your project, if your project meets more than one of the seven eligible categories. Here is also where you will attach maps, plans, and images to the project. And you can use that map maker tool to create a map of your project. More information is going to actually be shown later on in the presentation. So please be sure to include pictures of the location and the concerns, as this will give the selection committee a feel for your project. You'll also indicate the project location and the project limits, such as mileposts or corresponding street names, and if the project will affect user modes of transportation. If yes, explain how it connects to community or regional activity centers such as businesses, schools, employment, shopping, recreation, etc. Improve safety and utilizes existing infrastructure to promote the use of non-automotive modes through new facilities or the improvement of existing ones, and you have up to 1,000 characters to do all that. Continuing on to the project proposal section of the SAGE, you will have 1,000 characters to explain how the project supports community or regional benefits and visibility or impacts on surrounding locations. Does the project demonstrate the benefit to quality of life, community, and environment? Does the project demonstrate the extent to which a project links other transportation modes and increases access to community centers, like schools, employment sites, recreation, and shopping, and its visibility or impact on surrounding locations? 1,000 characters to explain if the project addresses safety and public health benefits. So questions like, does this project provide safety and public health benefits? Does the project address a safety need? Does this project increase active transportation opportunities? And does this project provide other health benefits, the other public health benefits? You have 1,000 characters to describe if the project is part of a state, regional, or municipal land use, transportation, bike ped, or economic development plan. And if so, have those relevant pages been attached to the plan. You also have 1,000 characters to explain if the project is located in a community that has a complete streets policy, is designated as a transit village, targeted urban municipality, or opportunity zone. You have 1,000 characters to explain if the project provides value as an environmental mitigation or enhancement. For example, does it enhance an environmentally sensitive parcel? Does it involve vegetation management? Does it involve wildlife management issues, provide stormwater mitigation, or preserve a historic property listed on NJ Registry of Historic Places or the National Registry of Historic Places as well. Explain if the project will be taking any right-of-way or easements from environmentally sensitive parcels, such as wetlands, parks, historic properties, or contaminated sites. Explain if the project requires permits and approvals, such as National Environmental Policy Act compliance, NJDEP, or other regulatory agency, including Pinelands, Meadowlands, and Highlands, depending on where you are in the state. No matching funds are required, but if there are other funds contributing to the project, that shows commitment and potential to succeed. The next section of the SAGE application is the project schedule. Make sure to attach a schedule that shows important milestones, including easement acquisitions, right-of-way permits, utility location, bids, start construction and timeline. Remember to consider NEPA documents approval if this is included in your project, and consider the time and effort required to obtain these environmental permits and allow for these this time in your project timeline. Indicate the number of months from written authorization to project completion and evaluation. Indicate who will maintain the facility. So we have some yes or no questions, and you have about 500 characters for each one. Does the project require utility location? If yes, please explain. Are permits required? If yes, please explain. Is the purchase of right-of-way required for construction? If yes, please explain. You have 500 characters to answer those three. Does the project intersect a state highway? If yes, indicate which highways, and if yes, is the intersection already signalized? Is there a railroad crossing or highway map within the project limits? You have 500 characters for that, yes, no. And will the construction impact traffic at a railroad crossing outside of the project limits? Yes or no. The next section of the application is cost estimate. Identify the phase of work for the project and make sure to check all that apply: design, right-of-way, and or construction. If construction, attach a detailed cost estimate including material cost, task needed to complete project, and include full-time construction inspection costs. Full-time construction inspection is required, and construction inspection is an eligible cost. If design, provide design engineering costs, and if right-of-way, provide costs to obtain that. Make sure to indicate the total project cost and indicate the total amount requested. Applicants are encouraged to use their own funds to pay for soft costs, or perhaps there are other sources of funding for the project. It's also recommended that projects have a requested funding amount between $350,000 and $1.5 million. Exceptions may be made at the discretion of the selection committee. Consulting engineers providing design services are not eligible to provide construction inspection services for the same project. Utility facility relocation costs are not eligible for reimbursement, and all projects must meet the requirements for the American with Disabilities Act, also referred to as ADA. The projects that involve funding for design, the project sponsor must comply with the federal requirements for the procurement of professional services if consultants are being used. Costs not included are administrative costs, contingencies, utility relocation, uniform traffic directors unless required by design. An effort should be made to develop estimates as accurately and comprehensively as is practical. To assist with the preparation of cost estimate, a typical design treatment cost guidance document has been developed and may be found on the NJDOT Local Aid Resource Training website under training. And the partnership and public outreach section will allow you to attach up to 5 letters of support from community organizations, residents, groups, committees, and other interested parties. So be sure to ask partners to address their letters of support of your project to the applicant, not to the NJDOT. Letters must also be signed and dated within 1 year of the solicitation date, which was May 24th, 2022. At this point, I'd like to stop and address any chat questions. I see a few in there, and just want to say, thank you. And if you don't get your questions answered now, we'll get to them. So I will hand it over.
Okay, and while John was talking, I was putting some answers in chat, but we'll just make sure we're good. And thank you everybody for being here today. So there was a couple of things that we want to just make sure are clear. So the first question was, for this TAP grant application, this is for New Jersey projects. So the project has to be located in New Jersey. Julie, do you want to make any distinction as if, for this application, like I mentioned earlier, usually it's the municipalities that are putting forth the application, but it does sound like you could have a partner if it's a regional partner that includes the locations in New Jersey, but the regional partner covers a larger region. Is that still a eligible regional partner, Julie?
I'm sorry, say that again. I apologize.
So there was a question about, to be an eligible entity residing in New Jersey to apply, or is this for any region? The project has to be New Jersey, but if you're a nonprofit that represents a larger regional area, you could still partner with the New Jersey entity.
I would say that, but it would be, obviously we want to have somebody that's within the state, because if we give funds out and you're awarded a grant, we want to see you build, construct, and build the project. So we want you to move forward with the grant. So the consideration is yes, you can be from outside of the state. We haven't had a restriction, but ideally the best thing is that you're applying for, obviously, this is a grant solicitation, by the way, let me be clear, for the state of New Jersey only. We do not speak for other states. Other states may run their grant programs and cycles differently than the state of New Jersey. So it's only New Jersey centric. That's first. And then just to answer that question too, I don't think it restricts it, but we need it for an application for a place located within the state of New Jersey. Mm-hmm. Okay. That's a better way to kind of clarify it.
Yep.
With a full time, the other thing is responsible charge is a definition. So we need somebody that is a full-time employee for some an entity like an LPA or whatever that is it within the state of New Jersey. That's the other thing.
Right. Okay. This question came into just the panelists, but and I responded that the slides today are already up on both the New Jersey Safe Routes Resource Center website and the New Jersey Local Aid Resource Center websites. I did provide a link that was to the Safe Routes website. You can go ahead and take a look at the slides today, as well as the recording. So if you do want to just download and share those slides, they are available. So there was an interesting question. This is a really interesting question, and this is a very much a growing question about when you say non-motorized transportations, does that exclude projects that involve electric assist bicycles and scooters? And I did provide a link to the website we have through our Bicycle and Pedestrian Resource Center on what is New Jersey's new e-bike and e-scooter law. This is a law that was just passed in 2019, so it's still relatively new. But the way the class 1 electric assist bicycle was defined in New Jersey, it's the same rules and regulations as a what I'm starting to call classic bicycle. I don't know if that makes me sound old, like a classic, but like your traditional bicycle that does not have a motor,
right?
The class 1 pedal assist and with a 20 mile per hour limit at the highest. Those are classified as bicycles, so they're not really. There's not a distinction as whether it's motorized or non-motorized. I know it's getting more confusing to say these words non-motorized, but in a way.
So Leanne, let me just stop you there, because I think a better clarification, the new bill has allowed for micro mobility, and that would be an e-bike, a regular bike, an e-bike, and or a scooter. That is all now eligible under the new bill. So therefore, if you are you thinking about doing some type of bike share, you are eligible to include that within your application for like a bike share, for instance, or if you want to put like a bike rack or something that would hold those micro mobility devices, I guess, to for a location to, you know, dock them and whatnot, that's eligible. Obviously, keep in mind that if you're going to put some type of a bike share system in or something like that, this grant only pays for the hardware. We cannot pay for you know, operating costs or maintenance. We don't pay for. It's literally the bike rack, the bike that must be steel and whatnot. So there's a lot of little pieces and details that folks aren't really thinking. It's not as easy as you think to get funded, but that's basically in context what it is. And you would probably put it under like bike share a bike facility and whatnot, because, or you may also include it within, let's say, a bike lane, or that could be either on or off road. So that's kind of the clarification. I hope that helps.
Yeah.
The other thing is apply and also schedule a one-on-one meeting to get additional clarification. That's important.
Right. So like a bike share or an e-scooter share system is something that can be part of the application, but then there's also personal use of e-bikes and e-scooters. And there's a little distinction there, and you know, where they can and can't go. We are in the process of updating our Bike Ped Resource Center website with a lot more information that's coming soon on this, what we call micromobility, which is the e-bike, e-scooter use and what the law says. So please stay tuned and, you know, sign up to our newsletter if you want to hear more about as we get more and more questions in to get those kind of nuances answered. We also had a question that came into hosts and panelists about, you know, does Pennsylvania also offer one-on-one meetings? This grant doesn't cover anything from PennDOT. Right. However, I did put a contact information in there because just like in New Jersey, some of the funding is reallocated through their local Metropolitan Planning Organization. And in that area, if you're in the Philly area, it's DVRPC or Delaware Valley Regional Planning Commission. And there's two contacts there that if you go to that page and scroll to the bottom, you'll get email addresses for those two people. And I just recommend emailing them directly. PennDOT's a big organization, but they all work through their local MPOs, just like New Jersey. So, you know, often start with the MPO and work from there would be a good thing. It does not look like PennDOT has offered transportation alternatives set aside for 2022, but I suspect it's coming soon. I don't know anything about it, but knowing that, you know, with the federal infrastructure bill, more money came into that pot for Pennsylvania as well. You know, you could actually go into the bipartisan infrastructure bill website on the USDOT and see how much increase in money each state has been given. So, you know, feel free to take a look at the infrastructure bill and start asking questions. And I know we have Eve Chamberlain here from North Jersey Transportation Planning Authority, which is one of New Jersey's MPOs, and they do welcome questions like this. I don't want to speak out of turn for DVRPC, but you know, that's what they're there for. If you want to offer any other advice on contacting your MPO, Eve.
Yeah, feel free to reach out to me at my email address or my colleague, Amy Jefferson. I can put both of our email addresses in the chat and feel free to reach out with specific questions.
Okay, so we have another question. If the applicant is a local municipality, is a project sponsor like the county required? That also came into the panelist and host. Okay, so do you want to take that, Julie?
Sure, short and sweet. An applicant that is from a municipality, we have 565 in the state of New Jersey. You're eligible to apply on your own. Again, you have to meet the 5 program requirements that we have to have your application eligible. Okay, so just bear in mind of that. And it says if our township did not do a resolution before May 24, 2022, does this mean we cannot apply? You can absolutely apply, but you want to get your resolution of support within this active time frame. We opened it up May 24th. You'll have till basically November 2nd to get your resolution acted on by the board. We want to see board action on your resolution. So you want to make sure that it's sealed and signed and noted that somebody, whoever acted and had voted on that has actually been done. So, and you can upload a copy in the application.
Right. And one thing that was mentioned about the person of responsible charge, if your municipality is interested in this grant, but you do not have a full-time municipal employee, That's why these one-on-one meetings are so important. There may be some opportunity to partner with your county on that. There's some counties that are willing to do that. There may be other avenues, but that's why these mandatory one-on-one meetings are so important, is to talk through what are the options. Okay. I think that's it. I've got a little bit left to wrap up with, and then we'll get to our last Q&A. So why don't we go ahead and take it from there? And then if you didn't get your question answered or still need more clarification, please feel free to add it to chat. So let me get going on the next part. Okay. Sorry, I just get my notes together. All right, so for this last section, I'm going to talk about the grant application process. And for a look at the bigger picture, there are 5 stages to the federal grant process. Currently, we are in stage 1 for this grant application pre-award stage. This is the application process, where DOT is soliciting grant applications. Following this stage are the award notification stage, where those who are awarded contracts will set up a kickoff meeting with the Department of Transportation and their local MPO. And next is the authorization stage, where both the Department of Transportation and the Federal Highway Administration review all final documents. This is where you will receive written authorization to proceed, and it's only at this stage 3 where you will be able to spend funds. So then the implementation stage, where you perform grant requirements, submit reports, and request and receive payments. And finally, the closeout stage, which finalizes the contract after all aspects of the project are complete. So this is a really important consideration when you're thinking about your projects. Completion of all 5 stages takes several years. Projects must receive authorization or the completion of stage 3 within 2 years of notification of project selection. This includes demonstration that the necessary permits, approvals, environmental clearances will be attained in that time period. Some things to keep in mind as you consider applying for these funds. First, completing the authorization process or stage 3 is necessary prior to funds distribution. Any money spent prior to receiving the official go-ahead from the Federal Highway Administration will not be reimbursed. Second, funds that are provided on a reimbursement basis. This means you will need to spend money upfront, present the invoices for the money spent before you are reimbursed. So be sure to budget accordingly. Finally, all applicable federal laws and regulations must be followed. So you need to make sure you have the capacity to manage federal funds. And this is really very neat for New Jersey. This is definitely a bonus. We're really lucky because by federal law, this grant requires a 20% match. However, in New Jersey, the New Jersey Department of Transportation covers that 20% match with state funds. So no additional match will be required of the applicant if you're in New Jersey. Can't speak for other states. One opportunity with the TA set aside is the Design Assistance Program. This will be available to all TA set aside grant recipients. The Design Assistant Program makes available consultant engineering services to assist with the development of plans, specifications, and estimates for projects. The New Jersey Department of Transportation will establish a pool of engineering design consultants through a quality-based selection process. The purpose of this pre-qualified consultant pool is to aid in the project delivery process by reducing the time required to procure professional services and ensure the consultant selection process is compliant with all federal requirements. Use of the consultant pool is not mandatory, but is encouraged in order to shorten the design time, reduce cost, and improve quality of the delivery of services. There are several steps to selecting a consultant and the services as part of this whole design assistance program process. So what you need to know is that if you choose to use the design assistance services through the Department of Transportation, DOT will hold a specific meeting to discuss the pool of consultants and the full process with you if you are selected for this grant. So new for this round of the TA set-aside process for applications are these mandatory one-on-one pre-application meetings with each applicant. Applicants must attend this meeting. Consultants are welcome to join the meeting. In conjunction with New Jersey's 3 MPOs, which are Delaware Valley Regional Planning Commission, South Jersey Transportation Planning Authority, and North Jersey Transportation Planning Authority, the Division of Local Aid is offering these pre-application meetings for the solicitation. The prospective applicant can discuss their project concept, get guidance on whether the proposed project is a good fit for the program. The team will be able to help identify any potential risks and discuss essential program requirements. Participation in these pre-application meetings does not guarantee a grant will be awarded, but it helps the department ensure that the projects submitted for funding are quality and good projects that meet standards. So pre-applications, there's only a few days left, are eligible until September 30th, so you must sign up today. Get your time on that schedule. Here are a few prerequisites to prepare for your one-on-one meeting. You create a project map, and if you don't have one, you can use this map maker tool. Create a brief description of your project. Create a cost estimate of your project. Also available on the NJDOT Local Aid Resource Center website, under training is a list of typical costs for design treatments to assist with your cost estimate. Review the pre-application questionnaire on the NJDOT Local Aid Resource Center website. Do you have to have all the questions answered and have everything, all your T's crossed and I's dotted? No, but you should come with at least, a plan, some sort of plan in place so you can talk through all the elements. Okay, let's finish up with some tips and strategies. And again, add your questions to the chat because we'll be getting to the next Q&A time very shortly. So first and foremost, make sure you review all the DOT grant application guidance materials. And there's a number on the Local Aid Resource Center website. Pay close attention to the content in the TA Set-Aside Handbook. So on the left side, as you look at the TA Set-Aside website on Local Aid Resource Center, you'll see a box that says Grant Handbook. Dog ear, highlight, make this handbook your friend. All of what we presented today is in that handbook and more. And there is a 2023 version. So if you have gone after this grant in the past and you have an older version of the handbook, don't look at that older version. There are some nuances based on the new federal bill. So make sure you download the 2023 version from the website. Make sure to include all 6 application requirements. So for resolutions, do not upload a blank resolution that is not signed and dated. Unsigned letters of resolution or adopted resolutions will not be accepted. This is a fairly common mistake, so don't make that one. Work early to get all resolutions from all affected parties, town council and school board and the county if you're working on or near a county road. All of those need resolutions and letters need to be signed, dated, and in. Resolutions can take time, so it's best to handle them early. There is a sample resolution on the website that includes the maintenance commitment that's also required. So use that sample resolution. It's also in the SAGE application when you log on to SAGE. So download that sample. You don't have to write it. Just put your own, your applicant information in and get the resolution passed. The resolutions must refer to the project for which the funds are being sought and be passed within the last year. Make sure support letters are addressed to the applicant, not to NJDOT. That's another fairly common mistake. Also, identify your person of responsible charge early. This is a federal requirement. The responsible charge does not need to be an engineer, but they must be a full-time employee of the local public agency or the applicant. Consultant engineers providing engineering services or functioning as the local agency engineer of record are not eligible to serve as the responsible charge. NJDOT understands not all municipalities have full-time employees, so if this is a concern, please reach out to local aid to set up your one-on-one meeting and talk about co-sponsorships and partnerships. Schedule and attend your mandatory one-on-one pre-application meeting at Local Aid Resource Center. Show you are serious about safety. If one of your concerns is speeding, make sure your proposed design solutions that are proven to reduce speeding. This is another fairly common mistake. If you're saying your challenge and your issue is a safety issue and that there's a lot of speeding, but you're actually not proposing a design treatment that helps reduce speeding, that's going to be a disconnect for reviewers. This is not a grant about just adding sidewalks and simple bike lanes. There are a lot of great engineering design resources for improving safety for people walking and bicycling. So please use those. Think about separated infrastructure for bicycling, and make sure if you're adding sidewalks that you're thinking about how people are crossing the street. Assess your ability to administer a federal aid project and prepare accordingly. After listening to today's presentation, it may feel like this grant is a bit daunting. The reality is it is a bit daunting. If you don't think you have the capacity in place to go after and then implement this grant, this is another good reason for having that one-on-one meeting. Maybe this isn't the right grant. There is some other grant funding available in other ways. So think about that, about what's coming up in your municipality, if it's your municipality going after the grant, and do you have the time to do this? Be thorough in your application. Ratings are based on the content of the application. So you won't be don't assume reviewers know anything about your town, your municipality, your community, your project. They will only be reviewing what you're presenting to them. Here's some more tips. NJDOT staff field check all project locations to make sure your map and project description provides clear project limits so that when they go out to the field, they don't get confused about where they're looking or where they're going. Indicate construction readiness. Include any status of permits, right-of-way, and utility relocations. Project funding amounts requested should be between $350,000 and $1.5 million. That's the scale of project we're talking about. Include all costs of the project, including construction inspection, and indicate if any additional funding sources you may have for this project. Ensure costs are current and comprehensive. So again, I'll mention it. I mentioned it a minute ago. There is a cost estimate guide. It's available on both the Safe Routes Resource Center websites funding page, as well as the Local Aid Resource Centers page. Use that as a guide for construction costs, because effort should be made to develop estimates as accurately and comprehensively as practical. So take a look at this typical design treatment cost guide, and make sure that you're providing the most up-to-date costs, because those costs, they can fluctuate. Include a map that provides context, connections, and attractions. You can use the free map maker tool on the Local Aid Resource Center site to draw your project, and use that map for your mandatory one-on-one meetings. Maps should include the project location within the larger area, the project limits of what you're actually proposing, and attractions like places people will likely walk and bike for food and entertainment, historic landmarks for public transit, all of those. It would be great to include all of those on your maps. And if that's still a struggle and maps don't have to be computer generated, you can highlight a paper map and scan it. You can use screenshots of Google Maps. One of the best things you can do is include some good pictures of your proposed project. In the application, you can include up to 10 photos, but I've seen applicants where they put multiple photos in a PDF that does sort of a walk through the project. You want to provide a description, the need, and the context to the project. Use your photos to tell your project story. When taking photos, make sure they adequately show the issues. If you have a safety concern, make sure you capture those concerns in your photos. If your concerns is seniors crossing the street on a Saturday morning, take pictures then. A photo of an empty street that doesn't fully capture the safety issues is not quite as helpful to reviewers. Also, don't include photos that are too close up and provide no context. Use people or feet or other ways to provide scale in your pictures. Remember, not all the application reviewers will be part of the field work. Give them the context they need to properly assess your project. Lastly, if you don't, to add to your list, go ahead and there we go. There are mistakes these are some of the mistakes past applicants have made, so don't make these mistakes. Do not submit a completed or partially completed project. Don't propose a project on a county road without consulting the county. Don't propose something that goes against current design standards. Projects must comply with American with Disabilities Act standards. Don't propose a sidewalk without an accompanying safe street crossing. And don't propose a project in a neighborhood where residents have actively protested against it. Projects that can show community support receive higher ratings. And think about costs. This should be for bigger projects. Don't apply for a federal grant if it's under that $350,000 mark. These are for much bigger projects. There's other ways to fund, quote, smaller projects. I know 350 sounds like a lot, but it goes quickly in construction. Okay, we're almost done. This is the final stretch. I want to give you some important resources for next steps. So many of you are probably familiar with the state funding programs. The New Jersey Transportation Trust Fund provides over $400 million in state aid to municipalities and counties for local transportation improvements. Each fiscal year, the New Jersey DOT issues a solicitation announcement to municipalities, inviting them to apply for funding for their specific project needs. Applications receive points based on various criteria, including existing conditions, safety improvements, and access to public services. Other important criteria include the municipality's special designation, whether the municipality has received an allotment in the last 3 years, and an extra point is given to towns with a adopted complete streets policy or listed by the Department of Community Affairs as a targeted urban municipality. So the state aid solicitation was open this past summer. It is now closed for 2022, so look for it for 2023. There's another opportunity. This is called the New Jersey Transportation Infrastructure Bank, which is an independent state financing authority responsible for providing and administering low interest rate loans to qualified municipalities, counties, and regional authorities in New Jersey. Currently, until the end of the month, until the end of September, the current loan rate is 1.75%. So in order to apply for a loan, you need to make an appointment directly with the infrastructure bank staff, which is the website there, njib.gov/njtib. There are many recent resources that can help guide municipalities on policy and design that address walking and bicycling, including several guides specific to New Jersey. For example, the New Jersey Department of Transportation Complete Streets Design Guide, the Complete and Green Streets Model Policy and Guide, the School Zone Design Guide, the School Bike Parking Guide, which is a good bike parking guide, whether you're talking about schools or outside of schools, as well as Planning for Greenways Guidebook. These are just a few of the New Jersey specific resources. Your county, your Metropolitan Planning Organization may have many, many more. So one thing you really need to do is show your commitment to safety. This is more than just some new road striping and a few signs. Consider designs that will make a real impact on safety, improving the environment, and addressing quality of life. The key is all environmental and engineering plans and specifications shall conform to engineering standards and must be prepared by a professional engineer licensed to practice in New Jersey. There's another great resource if you're looking for treatments that help improve safety, especially for people walking and biking, but all safety. This is Federal Highway or FHWA's Proven Safety Countermeasures. If you've not been to the website, I highly recommend you go today. These are evidence-based treatments and strategies that practitioners can implement to successfully address crashes to achieve safety goals. So one approach whose aim is to eliminate fatal and serious injuries for all road users is the primary method for realizing what is often called Vision Zero is the safe system approach, where traditional road safety strives to modify human behavior and prevent all crashes. The safe system approach also refocuses transportation system design and operation on anticipating human mistakes and lessening the impact forces to reduce crash severity and save lives. So look into these proven safety countermeasures. You'll see references to the safe system approach. These are the kind of projects that the transportation alternative set aside funding is specifically for. We want to save lives and improve the environment. Okay, finally, other resources and technical assistance you should take advantage of. First is the New Jersey DOT Local Aid Resource Center. I must have mentioned that 100 times already. This was established to assist each community with project planning, grant applications, project delivery, guidance through the federal process, and more. This is always a good place to start with all NJDOT grant information, and they do have a help desk for questions. A lot of what we are talking about today is also directly on the Department of Transportation's website under the Local Aid and Economic Development page. I will say this, I think at the Local Aid Resource Center page, a little easier to navigate. Sorry, DOT, but it is. But what you should also know is when you're looking at the Department of Transportation, specifically the Local Aid and Economic Development group, they are divided into several districts, including the main office. And so you should know that if you do get a grant application, you'll be contacted and working with the district that covers your area. Just please note if you're in District 2, that phone number has recently changed. So please, if you have older information, update your phone number. And as I've mentioned many times, the Metropolitan Planning Organizations, 50% of this TA set aside funding is sub-allocated to the 3 MPOs in New Jersey. They could also help your community address regional transportation needs. So here's some contact information to start with for reaching out to your local Metropolitan Planning Organization. Okay, there's another resource out here too. Can you see we've got a lot of resources in New Jersey, and this is fantastic. Across New Jersey, one of the best resources for local free technical assistance is one of the 8 regional transportation management associations that cover all 21 counties in the state. Staff within these associations are available to help with several walking and bicycling initiatives, including safe routes to school programs and assistance on adopting complete and green streets policies. So you can go to the saferoutesnj.org website to figure out which of these 8 transportation management associations covers your location. All right, and then my own shameless plug for our staff at the New Jersey Resource Center. That's myself and John Dugan and a few others. We're housed at Rutgers University, and we're supported with funds from the Department of Transportation to assist public officials, professionals, the general public in creating safer and more accessible walking and bicycling environments within your community. So we definitely believe by focusing on improvements that make it safe for children to walk, makes it safe to walk and bike, make it safe for everybody to walk, bike, and more. So feel free to reach out to our help desk for more information if you have any questions. Especially if you are a grant recipient, there are several training programs, and this is again, free training programs offered through the Center for Advanced Infrastructure and Transportation, also known as CAIT, C-A-I-T, which is also one of our sister agencies at Rutgers, who offer webinars and in-person training, and also will get your professional license continuing education credits for several types of grant administration training, including grant management for federal aid projects, federal aid person of responsible charge training, training on the crash analysis tool, and more. So especially if you know you're going to be getting a federal grant, I highly, highly recommend the grant management for federal aid project training program through Rutgers CAIT. And finally, the Federal Highway Administration also has a website. It's called Federal Aid Essentials for local public agencies. And this is an online library of informational videos, resources, and more to walk you through some of the complex regulations and requirements of federal aid highway programs, but they do break it down to easy to understand concepts and illustrated examples. Okay, whew, we made it to the next Q&A. So I see we don't really have a lot of additional questions, but we do have some recommendations in here. One specifically from our friend at also at North Jersey Transportation Planning Authority. That's William Yarzab. He helps run the Safe Street program or Street Smart program, which is a pedestrian safety program. And I also highly recommend, if your community is interested in working on education and encouragement programs on safe pedestrian and driver and bicycle activity in your town, please do reach out to Will Yarzab. He put his contact information and website into chat. It's an excellent program. I do highly recommend it. And it's a great complement when you are doing infrastructure programs and putting in new facilities for people walking and biking, to pair it with an education and encouragement program, and even identifying how you may want to work with enforcement. This is a program that will help you do that. And I love a shameless plug. So excellent job. Does anybody have any questions before we end our program for today? And John, you can go ahead and go to the next slide. Oh, I do wanted to mention one quick other resource, because this is new, just this week announced. New Jersey Department of Transportation. We talked a little bit about complete streets in this training. There is specific New Jersey DOT complete streets training, that there are 3 online-based trainings that are starting on Thursdays in October. So these online trainings are another excellent resource that cover the basics of complete streets, from the design elements, passing policies, and how to implement complete streets in your community. This training is designed for planners, engineers, advocates, public health professionals, policymakers, elected officials, or really anyone who wants to learn more about complete and green streets. So you'll see that there's 3 sessions. There's Northern, Central, and South Jersey focused. Those are just for examples and breakout groups where you'll be going through local area examples. But if you are from North Jersey, but say can't make the North Jersey date and want to go to the one that's in South Jersey, you will be getting basically the same thing. You'll just be getting a little bit more South Jersey examples when we go into our breakout rooms. So, pick one of the trainings if you're interested, sign up for the date and time that works best with your schedule. And we hope to see you at this Complete Streets training. So, and look for more information, reach out to us if you've got any questions about that. Okay. Now, next slide. Just a quick reminder about key dates. Julie went through these at the beginning. The solicitation was out. This is the informational webinar. You've got a limited time left for one-on-one meetings, and the application's due November 3rd. It's right around the corner. So I don't see any more questions coming in chat. Any final thoughts, Julie or Eve?
Yep.
Or
Just a couple of final thoughts. Make sure that you start thinking about your application if you're seriously going to put one in. We have about a month and a half left. Do schedule your one-on-one and be aware that the resolution is required. So you'll need to think about that in the next month and a half or so. And again, we have the 3 webinars, and we did reiterate, go ahead and actually, visit the website for information. So,
Eve, do you want to have anything else to add from NJTPA?
I would just say the same thing. Review the all the resources that are available. There's so much available. So, and it's great information that can really help you with your application and help you make sure that your application doesn't get rejected just because you inadvertently forgot to include something. That does happen, and it's always a sad thing when it does. But so that's my big takeaway. There's great information here and all the websites that Leanne referred to. So take advantage of all of that.
Oh, we do have one last question. One-on-one meetings scheduled before September 30th or October 30th?
I think it's September 30th.
September 30th.
A little bit beyond that, but we want to give you time. Might have been extended to about mid-October, but you still need enough time to actually get the application and the resolution of support. We want you to spend time to make sure that you have that time to do that. Because if you do a one-on-one, you'll still need time to apply and get your resolution. That's very important. Pay attention to your time frame.
Yeah. Yeah, the reality is, you might find in the one-on-one meeting, there's something that October 30th is just too close to the November 3rd deadline. If you found out something that you should have known at least a month earlier, it would be too bad. So definitely, the website is quite easy to use to set up your one-on-one meeting. It's more about your availability and who you can get there. And again, it has to be the actual applicant. If you use a consulting engineer or an on-call engineer, it can't be those. They can come, but they can't schedule the appointment. The appointment has to come from the applicant. Okay. Anything else? I think we're good to go. We don't have to go all the way to the end. This gives, I feel like I'm giving 10 minutes back to everybody in their schedule today. I hope you use it for enjoying the beautiful day that we have in New Jersey today. It's just gorgeous outside. So if you can, go get a breath of fresh air and then go back and make your one-on-one appointment if you haven't already. So on that note, enjoy the afternoon and good luck on your applications.
Good afternoon, everybody. Have a good one.